And we are live.
Hey everybody.
What's up? Third one in a row. What are you going to do about it?
I mean, this is 3 in less than 2 weeks. I think we're
This is, as far as
officially back.
volume goes, this is probably the most active we've potentially ever been.
We've even got guitars in our hands.
Yeah, exactly. I thought you said we've even got the Tarzan hands, and I was like, what does that mean?
Guitars in our hands, yeah. Got the Tarzan.
Got the Tarzan hands.
Tarzan hands is when you just can't play right. You've just
Mate, that happens so much.
Yeah, look down and just see a mess of wire and wood. It ain't happening.
Just start swinging on vines to get out of the gig.
So what happened to you today then? Because I thought you were teaching all day, and then I saw an Instagram story that you done chuffed up.
Yeah. I got up 6 a.m. Got into one of the schools that I teach in at 7:45 to teach a lesson at 8:20, and then the head of music comes in and he's like, "Oh, is it going? You have a nice summer now? Yeah, great." And then he's like, "What are you in for?" And I thought it was a joke, like we're back to prison or whatever. Ooh, lads. But he was like, he's like, "What are you in for?" I was like, "I'm here to
make some shekels."
Yeah, exactly. I'm here to make a bit of money in the daytime. And
impart some wisdom to the younger generation is the correct answer as well.
Exactly that too. But he just said, "Oh, yeah, there's no lessons till next week," because they started a half week or something last week, and then they haven't had time to see their teachers or whatever yet. So all that for nout. Well, not for now. I taught 2 lessons because I saw the girl that I teach bass to, who will be an absolute killer one day. On the bass, not a weird kid. Anyway. Yeah, I taught 2 lessons, and then went into my dear Stockport. Saw a semi-famous MMA fighter buying a ticket for his car from the ticket machine.
My dear Stockport sounds like a theatre, like a musical standard.
It does, doesn't it? My dear Stockport.
Should we write one there?
Probably have a chord progression that goes. Yeah, we do have guitars, by the way. Can't see mine currently, but I can change that. Did that, and then I went and hung out in the local music shop. And this guy came in actually that looked like he'd come directly from 1973. He had like flares on, tash, handlebars, like everything going.
Mega. Lemmy
proper
style.
Oh, big time, man. Proper committed. But I was actually looking. He's got a Kemper stage in there that I noticed. It's been in there for ages. And I was speaking to Jake about him, and I'm like, just as a, potential workplace tool. It's good enough for Hamilton,
Do you mean for live or for like home? Replacing your Helix, maybe?
Potentially a bit of both, really. It's smaller than the Helix, which I appreciate. And
is it sort of between Quad Cortex and the Helix in size?
Yeah, it's slimmer. It's like,
I don't know if I've actually seen one in person.
I'd say if you talk about, I don't know, maybe an inch off each side of the Helix, it's not that far off that.
Was this new or used?
Used.
Nice,
it's a pretty good price. But I don't know yet. We'll see about that. But that, and then I got my wing mirror nearly taken clean off. I wasn't even moving. I was just sat there, and I just saw this car coming closer and closer, and I'm like, ah! And
also, it was somebody in a car. It wasn't. I thought you said a runner, as in a jog. Someone jogging down.
No, someone doing the school run in the car.
Oh, so that's.
I think she was going to drive off, but then she realised that I was in the car because I was just about to set off. I'm like, you better stop. I'm memorising your reg right now.
Like the Beamer that did me didn't even pull over. It didn't stop or anything. Just took it off, and it didn't touch their car at all. Their car was perfect, but my wing mirror just came clean off.
Oh, it was. Well, it turned that way, and I was like, come on, because like wing mirrors are deceptively an expensive thing to get sorted.
It was like super expensive to sort. Yeah, to get done right as well.
This is a joke. Anyway, I got out of the car and just kind of looked at it, and it wasn't smashed. I put it back, and then I sort of pushed the plastic back on, and I was like, it's fine. She's like, are you all right? She's like, oh, sorry, I'm just in a rush. I'm like, are you really now? Are you really? I said, is yours all right? And she was like, yeah. I was like, right, cool. In a bit. It's like, you know.
Yeah.
And then that and the whole, you know, domestic nonsense that was going on yesterday, which it's just been a week, man. But yeah, I say a week. It's only been like 3 days or whatever since we last did one of these. It feels like so much.
Man, it's content at the moment. I've been doing the YouTube videos as well, and so it's I've had all this time off of gigging and like just not actually practicing very much. I've just been doing like, you know, podcasts and videos and finally getting stuff out there. Got to get myself all started up and haircut and whatnot. I've got having some pictures done tomorrow with this guitar.
OnlyFans? Oh.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I think we're sort of moving forwards, potentially like making more of them for stuff. So
nice.
I need to. Yeah, it's been quite a few like custom orders. I know you've had one after sort of similar. You've got it on your lap, haven't you? The sort of.
Hang on. I will just speak to my producer.
Oh, you can cut it in, can't you?
Oh, I thought I can.
You've frozen. You've spooned it.
There we go. No, we're good to talk.
There we go. Yeah.
I'm a bit washed out on the camera, but
and that's the thing, isn't it? I know I'm changing subject here, but when you were really panicked that was going to be a sonic blue and not a seafoam green, and it does look more sonic blue now on my screen, but I know in person because I was there when that was being built.
It's weird, man.
It's seafoam green.
Yeah, it bends like itself.
But
like
so does the Lake Placid or Lake Garda blue. Like this, you know, it will look very green in daylight, but then if you put hard light on it, artificial hard light, it looks quite a royal blue. Yeah, But I think these colours, these old Fender colours, are like that. I mean, definitely like Placid Blue is just notoriously across the board spectrum. So, and I think like, you know, you look at some Sonic Blues and they're all over the map, and so and there's variations. So I think if you like it, that's what matters, isn't it? But
I'll try and make this. If like I've darkened the light a bit, and you can see it sort of looks a bit more kind of green. It's probably closer to what it looks like in real life there, but
yeah. So anyway, yeah, we're gonna. I think Chubbers wanted to build several of these because it's there was the first replica that we did for the NAMM show this year sold, and which is really nice, and I think it's cool. It's I think it's part of the lineup now. This kind of body shape and whatnot. So yeah, I'm got it. So I got some pictures done for that. What else have I got to do this week? I'm in Wales on a gig on Sunday, which is a bit of a trek. And then, yeah, I think that's it. So back to you again next week. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I've had like quite a lot of depth stuff come in.
Guitar or bass?
Guitar. Well, a bit both actually. And as is the way, if I'm free, I'll just say yes. I actually said yes to one where with it's like a band I've never worked with before, but they're like, oh, can you do an acoustic set like before the main set?
Yeah.
Can you go acoustic before you go electric? Now, I thought I was asking a reasonable question. I just said, yeah, that's cool. And then I said, oh, out of interest, is there, you know, any like extra fee for doing the extra thing?
Oh, obviously, yeah. Should
do
be.
you know what I mean? I was just, because I don't want to, because I've never worked with them before, so I don't want to sound like super crass, like, not going to get out of bed for that, Sonny Jim.
Sorry, Dan. Apparently there's like a, Pat in the chat says there's a weird vibrato on my audio. Let me just see about that.
I don't know if I can hear it from here, but...
He might mean like a doubling effect on like a chorus, maybe. Pat, do you mean like it's a chorus on my voice? It might be what Jake gets when he's sometimes. Let's see.
Pat's now the actual producer.
Yeah, no idea. We'll not be able to sort it. If it's really bad, I'll just turn my guitar off completely. But
Beebs audio. Just play like a chord and hold it. Sounded pretty straight to me, but I don't know. Just a sort of tremolo.
Tremolo.
Mm.
That's weird. Let's see if I can. Let me turn this. Oh no. Okay, is this any better now? I can't hear myself in my ears now, but it's it might be that. Anyway.
Well, see, I mean, I'm capturing what I hear, so play one note maybe. I'm not hearing a tremolo, but
Is it my voice or the guitar and the voice? So the voice is the same. Yeah, so it's something.
guitar is fine, he says.
Well, what
Just the
about
voice.
now? So now it really shouldn't.
I think I'm getting a bit of a now. But
Anyway, we're just gonna have to make do because it's all
Yeah.
live.
oh, it sounds like a phone noise. Is that me?
It's a problem doing this live.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I'm
it's
getting.
worse. It's worse now.
We can do a quick be right back if you want.
I don't know if I'm going to be able
I
to
have
fix
the
it.
slide.
I don't know if I nothing. I have no clue what it is. So.
It seems worse now than it was before. I'm
Right.
getting quite a phone interference noise now.
Weird. No idea. Nothing's changed from last time.
Is your phone near anything that might?
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's gone now. We'll deal with it. See what we do. It's definitely worse. The perks. This is the live streaming conundrum. Anyway, so yeah, with all that said, that's loose catch-ups of the last couple of days or whatever. So I had the idea of, and I will link this in the description because that's what responsible content creators do. You know what I mean? Ethical content creation. Is there's a video, God, I don't know when it was now. Maybe 2 or 3 videos ago from the guys on that pedal show, and they were talking about getting out of busting your guitar rut. Busting makes me feel good. Busting out of your guitar rut, and it was 10 things to try is what they did. So let me just say this now. This is not like a sort of big heavy critique or takedown of that. Really, it's us just sort of putting our metaphorical, what's the word, hat in the rut busting ring.
Mm-hmm.
If that works. Rut busting ring. Careful on that. So yeah, I have been thinking about a few of these things recently. I've actually been doing a bit of practice. I say a bit. It is a bit, but that's better than having just not really practicing at all, which has been kind of the case for quite a while, really. Kind of off the back of a couple of things, really, but kind of off the back of reading this Steve Lukather book, actually.
Oh yeah.
Hearing these stories and hearing these these different players and what their skill set that they had to do, and it's just quite inspiring stuff. Because when I went to university, at 19, 20 sort of ish, I didn't want to be famous. I didn't really want to be a songwriter. I didn't want to be a producer. I didn't want to be the fastest shredder. I kind of wanted to just be like Larry Carlton and Steve Lukather, that could kind of sort of turn up and be on most things. So I wanted to be as well-rounded as possible. So maybe there's some element of nostalgia there, and maybe that could be a rut busting thing, because nostalgia is quite a powerful tool.
In terms of being in a rut or actual getting out of it? That's interesting.
Getting out of it. I think
Ah,
like you can, because you sort
could
of
look at that the
remember
other
when
way,
you were
couldn't you?
excited.
Yeah, yeah, true.
But go on. What do you mean the other way?
Oh, well, I think you could see it as like, well, if you're looking back nostalgically, that could be potentially putting you into a rut in some ways. But anyway,
What,
but I
in
still,
like I was beautiful once kind of way, or
yeah, I don't know. It's just an interesting way I think you could look at it. But if I understand what you're saying, like in this specific context where the versatility, the actual uh of that specific kind of player is definitely going to lead to multiple different things you could think you could go down. Like I could get nostalgic and to something that like I have done recently with some videos, like trying to play old Steve Vai solos or something, and it's like it's something that I can't really do because it's anymore in the same way, but it would be like a comfort procrastination to kind of get back into, so because I used to do it. So I think I could take nostalgia and find myself in a rut potentially, but that's just my particular things of learning very niche,
yeah.
unapplicable, unusable
Do you
things
reckon?
when I was a kid.
Do you reckon if you say you did go back and learn, because you showed us
I do from
a
time to
video,
time.
you played as an audio of you. God, what tune was it? Tender
So,
Surrender or something?
yeah, Tender Surrender from my
Where you
A-level
like,
music recital.
yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
how old would that have been then? Like
Oh,
18?
yeah, I was 17,
17,
17,
yeah,
18. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Like,
so
and I think I could probably like go back and like dig that out. And I have done several times over the years. I've tried to have another crack at it and what have you. And I could probably, the interesting thing is now I could probably do it better, but it would take a lot of work. Maybe it's a project at some point.
um, but do you think if you did try to go back and relearn that, do you think there's like residual stuff there in terms of like some technique or
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
because even though it's not what like not what you are necessarily striving for now, like getting that little hit in the arm of nostalgia and being like, oh yeah, and getting excited about that, it would potentially lead to, I mean, maybe not in your case because I know you practice a lot, but it would potentially lead to more time on the instrument. And you're kind of doing it for enjoyment, and the whatever perks came from it would be sort of little technical stuff. Whatever perks, it'd be like, oh, actually, my picking's improved or something. Whereas if you sit down and go, right, I'm going to improve my picking, that might not be enjoyable. You know what I mean? Depending on what you're doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and depends how you're wired as well, doesn't it? I think that's going to probably come to some of that a bit later down the list and what have you. But yeah, I think
But go on.
Yeah, the nostalgia aspect is, I think, potentially a double-edged sword for me personally. I could see it being a good thing and also maybe a bad thing, just knowing how my brain is wired.
But I would, if we're gonna try and like do this a bit listy, a bit like the pedal show guys.
Yeah.
I think maybe one of them, for me, would be. It leans into a few things. This, but basically remember either why you play guitar, or what kind of excited you potentially in the first place, and try and get back to that same sort of childish wonder somehow, because it's very difficult to get there. Like, I've played for 23 years now, and there's no way I'm going to be, well, it's not no way, but it's a bit more difficult to get the same sort of dopamine hit, as it was years ago learning the Enter Sandman riff or something. You know what I mean? Like, but that's probably just a thing of like, well, I didn't know anything, and then I could play that, and I was like, oh my god, I never thought I'd be able to do that sort of thing. So it's a slightly different sense of achievement. But tied to this, and this is again kind of off the back of that Steve Lukather book. I think one thing, and again, I know none of these are like necessarily guitar specific, but I think sometimes instead of just sort of going, right, I'm going to pick the guitar up and this is going to happen, which is obviously our thing, I think you can definitely get some excitement or inspiration to get you out of the rut. Just sort of putting the guitar down and just go and listening to some stuff. So like this Steve Lukather book, he's talking about being on this session or that session, and some of them I've not heard before. Like one of them, I think he said there's like a solo that sort of broke him. Not broke him as in like, you know, oh, now I'm broken, as in like broke his career, if you like, on a Boz Scaggs tune. And it's this very, I went, and I'd never heard it before, and I went to listen to the tune, and it's like this very kind of like Larry Carlton, like LA sound. I'm doing air quotes for the audio people, sort of LA sounding solo. I was like, oh man, that's so, you know, like, so I'm kind of going in a different way, and it kind of makes me excited about guitar playing, and then I want to play guitar rather than just staring at it and being like, right, we're going to fix this marriage. You know what I mean? It's like, so one thing I would say is it's okay if, you know, the guitar is kind of annoying you, or you're kind of a bit like, oh, whatever with it. But try and maybe step away slightly and just listen to some stuff, listen to some music. Like, go out of your way and go, oh, I'm going to try and, you know, I'm going to go down this little hole. Like I've been on a bit of a Steely Dan kick recently off the back of that. And it's just made me interested again. Do you have any thoughts on that? I know it's not as tangible as like play this.
Well, no, it's good actually, because I was thinking about potentially starting at the back end of the list anyway, because I thought that was really, the last one was almost burying the lead, the kind of sorting your head out, which is a little bit in maybe what you're saying. It's more sort of a mental approach to just rather than something specific, you know, tangible hands on the guitar. It's about like a mindset maybe.
It has the potential to lead to more hands on the guitar.
Hey, where
theoretically.
Just forget. Yeah, there was at least a couple of people in the chat at one point saying hello. Yeah, so I think having obviously, you know, listening to music, getting fired up mentally for it, maybe listen to different things. That can certainly help you crawl out of a rut. For me, maybe I won't bury it. I'll just come up front and say it. I think it's the most important thing is for me was to try and find some on a similar thing about, you know, getting fired up for it, is to sort of just try and find happiness in the rut, maybe. Like
become one with the rut.
Yeah, like just try to find a sort of an equanimity, or
I'm just thinking of like some guitar Bane. Like, I merely adopted the rut.
I was born in the rut. Yeah,
molded by it.
I'm just rutty to the core. But I think what I'm trying to say is that
well, there's the thumbnail.
Like, thanks, Pat. Yeah, I turned off all the guitar stuff. I'll have to do some testing, debugging later on with Dan. It's the quad cortex. Anyway, so I think I can't remember. Maybe it was Steve Vai or someone I'd read when I was in my teens, something about just, and it's the sort of thing, like twee thing that, you know, someone might say that there's ways to say them to do, obviously, but like I remember somebody saying, like, just finding pleasure in just the strings of a C major cowboy chord just resonating, just remembering the basic simple things, and that very much is, I think it's almost like maybe don't have to be super scared of the rut in the first place if you're like treading a path that is, because I think sometimes you could think you're in a rut when you very well might not be. You could you could still have loads of things to work on inside your rut that aren't like 100%, in control, or, things that you might be perceived as maybe more basic. So I think just maybe potentially just finding um, trying to find equanimity with, if you are in somewhat of a rut, that it might not be the worst thing in the world if you just look at it from a different end of the telescope, maybe, and try and think about what it is that you go to do, these kind of cliches or these repetitive things, and what stuff is around the periphery of those that you aren't so good at, or you could maybe refresh or kind of change up. Yeah.
I think I had some thoughts on the similar thing, actually, which was like, I think as guitar players, I'm not entirely sure where it comes from, but it's like you're trying to go to the new, and there might be loads of new in what you've already got.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. So
what's it called when you like take a set of drawers and you like, is it upcycle? Is that what it's called? You know, it's like if you have a set of drawers and like they're a bit screwed, you like sand them down and paint them again rather than getting new ones. I think it's upcycling.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think you can take for granted, or like you can assume that you are really good or sorted or solid at something within your rut, but you might not be. Like, it's just having a.
You can't find the rut within the rut.
Yeah.
Rutception.
Rutception. That's it. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Rutception. So, there's things that you can sort of take for granted that. Or you assume that you really might be sorted with, that you might not be. So you might assume as a rut. Anyway, that's my main one.
I thought about that similarly, because there's like the odd thing here and there, or like thought processes that I know exist but don't really use. So for instance, like what was the thing I've been playing around recently? Like triads. Now, I know what a triad is, and I know the whole thing. However, because of the way I look at the fretboard, which is pretty much, well, it's the same as Beebs, really. It's not that it's not necessary. It's just a different thing. So, like for instance, I'll explain it. So, if I'm playing over an E minor 7, and I can go, oh, I can use a G triad to get the flat 3, the 5, and the 7. That works, and that's correct. But that's a slightly different mindset to, I just know where all the notes of an E minor 7 are. Do you see what I mean? However, I've been sort of playing around with it a little bit recently, and even though it is a slightly different mindset, I think it does lead to a slightly different sound. Because it means that you're less likely to play the E. It means or if you stack, if you do the next one up and you do the 7, 9, 11 or whatever. So it gives you, it sounds a bit more like a move, like you're just like a bit of more of a broad brush of, I'm doing this thing now. But I've been playing around with that a little bit. And so again, it's not new information. But
this is a fretboard thing then. So, and are you talking about thinking 1, 3, 5 as opposed to flat 3, 5, flat 7?
So I'm thinking of like a chord over another chord rather than a triad over a chord rather than the whole stack.
Yeah, because obviously, I mean, I think if you are sort of picking out the ether with your ear, perhaps thinking of where all the notes of E minor are, that might lead to a different thing. But if you were thinking flat 3, 5, flat 7, I don't know if that would lead to anything different. Thinking 1, 3.
It's probably more of a, I don't like this word, but it's probably more of like a hack way of doing it. Whereas it's like, I'm doing this over this, and I'm literally just thinking of like G shapes. So I am thinking 1, 3, 5.
Yeah.
But I know the outcome is flat 3, 5, flat 7. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, neither is good or neither is better or worse. It's just, I think you're right. Just create a bit of a different, maybe it's more like a direct access to a particular thing, in a particular context.
Yeah,
Um,
I find that it does sort of change the shape of what comes out. I would probably say. So rather than like, because I can sit there and go, right, I'm playing over an E-7, and I can go, I want to hit the 9, I want to hit the 11, I want to hit, I get to all that. That's fine. But rather than like a big broad thing, it's almost like, right, I'm just going to step into this little pool now and just do this thing, mix it with this thing, and then kind of play around with like enclosures on those sort of triads. But the point is, it's something that I know, but I don't really use because I sort of do things a different way. So I'm kind of like, oh, I wonder what happens if I do, just change the thought process to that thing. It's not, I'm not completely abandoning the other thing. It's just for that brief minute, I'm thinking that over that. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit like, people that go, right, I'm going to use this superimposed pentatonic over this or whatever. It's the same sort of thing.
It's exactly
like,
that. You're imposing the written chord symbol is E-7, but you're mentally thinking from a G, and you're playing a G triad. And
yeah. But it does. I think the result is different. But the point is like, that's not new information to me. It's upcycling. Do you know what I mean? I've sanded down my fretboard, and I've put gloss all over it. You know what I mean? It's like it's that thing of like, there's probably stuff that you can try within the stuff that you already know. I'm trying to think why guitar, if it is a guitar specific thing, or why guitar players are like this. Because if you think back in the day, it was like the quest for exotic scales or whatever. You know what I mean? It was like, oh, I don't sound like these guys, so I must learn a new scale, or I must learn this new chord, rather than what can I do with the things I already have. You know what I mean? Even something like, is it Carl Verheyen was talking about, like, people go, oh, pentatonic, everyone plays that, it's whatever, it's boring, everyone does it. He did something where he like played something really quite sophisticated, but then he put a pentatonic lick on the end, because it's kind of like, here's all this intelligent stuff, but I'm just going to stick this little bit on the end just to kind of sweeten it, because everyone knows what that is. So if you think of it that way, it's like, yes, the pentatonic is potentially overused, but to some extent, it is like the sound of the electric guitar in a lot of styles.
The language of the electric guitar, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But having said that, like we just talked about, like say playing say you've got an A-7 and you play like an A pentatonic minor over it, you're going to get different chord tones than you would if you played A minor pentatonic, but you're still within your pentatonic comfy landscape. If that's not something that you've done, there's loads of like weird stuff you can do with that. I know what that is. I've never really done it because it seems like a bit of a shopping list of tricks to remember for me personally. But I'm exploring these things within what I already know, just to make things a bit more fresh, because I have had that sort of the same as you, that sort of overarching thing of like, oh, here's the chord I'm on. There, I can get to all of the notes. You know what I mean? Which, in a way, it's because the trick thing is usually done as a way to get the sound without having to do the other thing first.
Without doing the work, yeah.
In a way. Well, that might be, I'm not trying to throw.
But that's not bad necessarily. No, that's not necessarily bad, because I think it can result in. This is one of the criticisms I could level at my own playing, and obviously there are many. But one of the criticisms I have is that, well, one of the downsides, or potential downsides to sort of visualizing in the way that I do, and largely, you and Tom do, and is. This thing to acknowledge is it is not a silver bullet for suddenly having lots of things to say in terms of language or vocabulary. And I think, like, so it is absolutely the secret to completely seeing harmony on the fretboard in real time and improvising with it. But it's not necessarily your organization of all that is only really going to then come from like listening, transcribing, and putting it into sort of musical context and practice. So that's one point to note. But the other thing is as well that the tricks, if you like, the superimpositions or the kind of the other more traditional sort of ways of visualizing, maybe well, actually that's not true. Like 3 note per string, maybe from a technical standpoint in terms of sort of shredding, or caged from like a outlining of basic kind of harmony. I think those things might very well lend themselves to a more direct grasp of language elements or vocabulary elements, because it's things that are, or the pentatonic boxes, as Dan said, the language of the guitar. It's like, that framework lets you sort of hang your musical hat on so much that the utility is so important. One of the things I would still always come back to is that with a real deep sort of intervallic based approach to visualization, if that is at the core underneath of everything, then you can make sense of everything else in a very, very systematic way, in a very, very organized way, and you are never. One of the beautiful things about it is there's almost no musical situation that I could be put into where I'd be completely like stuck. I'd be able to like get away with something that's not just dependent on my ears, because then if I was dependent totally on my ears, then I would be fucked. But
yeah, and I think some of these I had to. Again, I'm not throwing shade by calling them tricks. It's just a lot. Well, maybe tricks is not the right word, but there's a lot of things.
It's more traditional.
There's a lot.
It's a traditional way of looking at stuff. Yeah,
that,
and it's totally valid.
You could describe as a trick, but it doesn't mean it's not valid. It's just how those guys think. Because there's like there's some old like sort of jazz swing stuff where people would like, what's the West Montgomery thing? It was kind of like ignoring the 5 or something, or just like playing a 2. There's like a weird thing of like ignoring one of the chords, and there's a lot of guys that do it. There's like
I do it.
Django stuff as well, where it's like, and it has
ignoring
our
the 2.
sound. Yeah, it has our sound.
Where it's practicing. Like, I practiced a lot of ignoring the 2 on the Jerry Bergonzi sort of exercises and things. It's totally works. I think for a more beboppy kind of whatever swing or jazz thing, I think ignoring the 2 often is a useful. I think what's the opposite of that? Who is it? Is it Pat Martino or somebody that ignores the 5 and that's a little bit strange, but again could result in something cool. These are when you say. I think tricks is perhaps the wrong word, but I totally get what you mean. It's more.
Should we say device?
It's a device. It's a more traditional way of kind of supplementing whatever your ears do naturally, and I think you can do that with these kind of things like pentatonic boxes, triad cage shapes, 3 note per strings, and the sort of and they all have their kind of strengths and weaknesses to varying degrees, and then. And we've all learnt those again to varying degrees. But I think one of the things that we've obviously banged on about on the podcast so much, and we've all practiced done, and Tom and I built the whole solo app, was to kind of like put a core at the core underneath it all was this sort of intervallic approach that allows you to sort of make sense of all of the others. It's not to say it's better, it's the best thing, but it's just. For me, it's just been a really revolutionary way of organizing the fretboard and making sense of my own and sort of supplementing my sort of other, what's the word I'm looking for? Not failings, but like where my ears kind of sort of stop, that can take over and help develop and improve them. I think that's what people have done with all of these things, like in large part, like learning your pentatonic minor shapes is a way to have something physically to play when your ears can't you do just magically find stuff on the fretboard, and then by learning that shape, you're hopefully training your ears as well.
Yeah, man. We've got the doctor in the chat. Is he on the way to a show? Maybe. So many vocal melodies are pentatonic. True. But boxes versus pentatonic is the issue. Fretboard geometry versus musical geometry.
Yeah, but that's a physical heuristic, absolutely. But that physical heuristic is like, I think the assumption is when people are educating and teaching, is the assumption is that those two will come together. And obviously, for a lot of people, many people, myself included, for the largest part, they didn't, or they don't. And I think, and that's where the geometry of making things is, what's the base code? What's the most simple unit of geometry and oral thing in terms of the intervallic way of doing it? That's why it's so powerful, is because you're working from first principles of like, what's the smallest physical geometry to express this smallest musical DNA idea, and that paired, with the ear, I think is just like the open highway to so much. But the sort of boxes, pentatonic shape, or pentatonic boxes, or the other more traditional things, the larger structures, still do the same thing, but you've just got more stuff to remember. You've got just more stuff to organize, and I think it's a bit makes it harder. And the two things don't necessarily come together. As what Jake's saying, you can't. Yeah, the having the geometry and having the sort of musical language or the sense come together, and it's not necessarily a given for any of it.
Yeah, man. Learned this all too well trying to look at any sort of bebop stuff where new geometry is absolutely screwed.
Yeah, Jake's comment there, like, your ear can't, this is a great point. Yeah, your ear can't always make it happen on the fretboard, and if you have no available fingers, so we lean on some geometry. I think you might be sort of underplaying that there a bit, Jake. I think that happens like for a lot of, maybe not for you because you're the doctor, you're amazing, but like for so many people as well, like leaning on geometry or leaning on ticks or leaning into our rut to bring it back around is absolutely essential, like half the time, more for me, more than half the time, like to be able to actually get and get the job done, maybe.
Yeah.
So should we do some more of the more ruttage?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's because it's happened to me a couple of times in this local music shop near me. And we are, it's not quite the same, but we are kind of privileged in a way in that we have our little dull men's club where we can talk about this stuff. Where we have this forum between me, you, Jake, Tom, where if any little thing like, oh, what about this guys or whatever, like any little playing thing, there's a place where we can go to sounds like some 70s sitcom song, but there's a place that we have
where we go.
we where everybody knows your name. Everybody knows the chords.
Everybody knows the change.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have this outlet where we can talk about this stuff, even if it's like, oh, I've just come up with this riff, or oh, I'm just learning this. Does anyone have this problem with any little thing? Because we're all sort of peers and we've all done it for a very long time. We have a place for that. So I think having your own dull men's club,
or ladies club, or dull persons club,
is definitely a thing. But the other thing I would say is one thing that can really, if you feel like you're in a rut and you don't know where to go with it and you don't know what to practice or you don't know what to work on, get out of your practice like prison. Get out of your practice prison and go and like arrange a jam with somebody. Social media is like a great tool for, hang on, if you can hear the sirens, someone's broken out of the practice prison. Get them. So yeah, go get out of your practice thing. Call up a mate, arrange some sort of like jam where it's not like there's no egos going on. Nobody's trying to outdo each other. You are, you can either do two things. You can just go and jam and find common ground with what you both know, and for the most part, one of the that'll probably end up being like some sort of blues or some sort of riff based thing, because you go for the common tongue when it comes to jamming a lot of the time, right?
That
The
sounds
common
awful.
tongue. You go for the common tongue, which is like 12 bar
Common
or
tongue
something.
in the ruttage.
And obviously, if you know each other, you can you probably know what each other's about a little bit, and then maybe you can throw some other stuff in. But the simpler you keep it, it's a more of a playing field for both parties then, and there's no like nobody's picking something or going, oh, let's play this, and it's like, holy shit, I can't play over that.
Great.
Set up some sort of jam, and two things can happen there. One is you'll get this like weird like folk kind of cultural exchange in terms of like riffs and stuff, because it doesn't matter how good you are, it doesn't matter if you've been playing 20 years longer than the next guy. The next guy might do something that he got from some record somewhere, and you'll be like, whoa, what was that? Like there's always, you'll and someone else will play something cool, and you'll be like, oh shit, what's that? And there's that there. But the other thing is if you are playing over something quite simple, you will very quickly, I don't say very quickly, but you'll probably run out of ideas at some point, and then you have to start thinking. And the other thing is, no backing tracks. If you're going to go jam with someone, don't use a backing track.
Oh, interesting.
I'm telling you right now, y'all.
That's super interesting.
If you got two guitars, I think don't do it. Don't use a backing track. Like, because that's the other thing is like the comping and still describing the chords and making it interesting and like reacting to what the other person's doing and trying to do that thing that gets neglected. Again,
let's just preface this though with saying that you're talking about a very specific goal there, like, and I'm 100% in agreement with you. But I've had situations where, pre-COVID certainly, I was like always just like jamming with people, and of different levels, and I think there's that can be quite an intimidating thing if someone's not done it before, like that in what you're saying, like just. So people come over, and the assumptions that someone would make about what a jam is with another guitar player is really interesting. Like obviously, if sit down with you and Tom or Jake, like chances are we're not going to touch a backing track, but that's not someone else I might sit down with is would be like the thought of just having to play just as a duo, two guitars and jam, whatever, might be like, nah, that ain't happening. It's like they might be assuming that, oh, we're going to YouTube and we're instantly getting like, so I think it depends on your goals and what level you're at and what you're interested in. But I mean, the overall kind of skill set level up, whatever, of just playing with another person is, I mean, it's my favorite thing in the world to do. In fact, we're not practicing what we preach, because you and I have been supposed to be doing a dull standards club for like 2 years, and we've still not done one. Had one.
Yeah, man. Sorry about that.
No, it's my fault as much.
I jammed today though in that shop. I've been in there a couple of times, and he was like, "Let's get a jam going." It's like, it's quite a nice. Again, this for me, this sort of bleeds into the other sort of thing, sort of from, we haven't really given these numbers, but the first one of like that sort of nostalgia thing, or like why you're doing it, or remembering the fun a bit. You know what I mean? And it kind of I don't know. It's just, I think making if I'm sure there's probably a lot of guitar players that listen to this that are fairly lonely creatures. And I know, people have families and stuff and people are very busy. But if you can make an effort to make your guitar life a bit more sociable, make your playing and practice life a bit more sociable. We so like, I saw Jake actually at Radar not long ago, but it's been ages since, any of us seen each other all at the same time in the same room kind of thing. But making it sort of sociable, because one, you're having fun. And then again, some guy might play something. You're like, oh, what's that? And then you'll get something there, and then you'll be excited to take that thing that has just been handed down to you, you know, probably by Tom, of like, oh god, what's that thing? And again, it's more, you know, it makes you want to get in the pilot seat and do pilot hours rather than like strapping on the goggles and like, oh god, here we go, right? You know, I've got to, you know. So I think that thing, play, you know, jamming with people, I think making it sort of sociable. And I would say, if anybody listens to this, and if you ask someone to jam, or if someone asks you to, if you want to set up a jam, you're not allowed to say no. You can't refuse. If someone says, doesn't matter who it is, somebody off the back of this, in the you know, the pod future, in the pod space, if someone texts and goes, oh mate, you know, we live in the same place, roughly. Do you want to get a jam? You have to say yes. It's like in the olden days, if someone asks you to dance, you can't say no, or it's bad form.
It's one of the best things that I've ever done, was start being, it sounds stupid, but start being musically sociable and guitar sociable. Like, I think you're absolutely right. Like, I was a lonely guitar creature for, you know, maybe 10, 12 years, like not really connected to the instrument or to any kind of
that lonely guitar crustacean at the bottom of the sea.
And it was great. And then when I kind of like emerged in my sort of early 30s, I was like, yeah, let's have at it. I want to play with everybody now. And it was like, it's just absolutely great, great fun. Yeah, great experience to sit down and play with people who are, you know, friendly but better than you.
Well, yeah, it's why I say, like, sort of no egos. Like, make, you know, it's basically what the ideal. And I'm saying this as somebody that doesn't have this properly right now, that is easily accessible anyway. But I can figure that out. I got the number of the guy that I jammed with in the shop the other week. Who's like,
you dog.
Into his jazz. Not like that. But a kind of safe space, for lack of a better term, where you can sort of mess around with stuff, because that is a place where you can mess around with stuff and get feedback in the moment, in a way, musical feedback and feedback from the other guy, where you can go for something, and if it doesn't come off, you can try it again, because it's you're right there. You're not doing it on stage. You're not practicing on stage, which I don't know if, you know.
Yeah, that's it. That's
do
it.
You know
I think,
what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah, totally. Playing with other people, like different people, regularly, that's going to bust you out of rut. It will by default, I think, because and if you're doing it on their terms, maybe like going in with an open mind, where maybe you can't, maybe you go to someone's house to jam and you're expecting to fire up Dorian backing tracks on YouTube, but it's like, no, just like they might be just, we're going to play something and, you know, make have a different experience, just going in on their terms, or vice versa, you know. And I think just that very nature of just playing with different people often will bust you out of a rut, I think.
Yeah, and if you do make it regular, you do have that thing of like, oh, I really enjoyed that, I want to do it again, and oh, I kind of went for this thing and it didn't quite come off, but I know I want to work on that, and next time I go back, I'll try and get that in. You see what I mean? So it's be more guitar really sociable, I think, is on my is big up on my list there.
Yeah, that's a really, really good one, which I don't think was on Dan and Mick's list, was it? The sort of
no.
Was there anything? Okay, so was there anything on the list that you thought was like, maybe not, that you?
I'm not actually a big pedal. It's not that I don't like pedals. I'm just not a big pedal guy.
Watching that pedal show.
I know. Yeah. What do you expect?
Well,
I hate watching Dan and Mick.
I just love Dan and Mick. I mean, regardless of what they're talking about. I mean, I think those guys are, you know,
those two are like a prime example of like a safe, like, space. They meet up regularly. You know, they've learned a lot off each other. Like, if you, in fact, I'm really impressed with Dan's playing, because he kind of came into it early days like, oh, I'm just like this guy in a shed who makes pedals. I'm not that much of a player, and then he's he's been like, his playing's come on loads since
He's
kind of doing that.
he's
And
a
again,
he's a great player.
that's
They both are.
probably, there's probably some sort of symbiotic thing there happening.
And they get cool people in all the time, don't they? They get superstars in all the time with who are gonna like be like you say, they're gonna be like, oh, just watching and absorbing off up close. To people doing their thing, and that's again another potential, busting out the rut by seeing such world class players up close and getting to spend that time and
Yeah, man. Yeah, so I'm not like to answer the question. I'm not that much of a pedal guy. So some of the ones that were like, try this effect or try that effect.
yeah,
they're okay, but it doesn't tickle. It doesn't tickle the like. I'm probably more about playing sort of values that will fit a lot of things. You know what I mean? Like envelope filter, pitch shifting. I get why they're doing it. If I was maybe more of a songwriter and I was like, really kind of trying to get creative and write songs, I think maybe playing around with effects that would potentially force me to play a different way, that would perhaps get me out of like a writer's block or something. But in terms of the playing thing, the effects sort of based ones didn't quite do it for me. Things like ditching the pick, that could be kind of cool because you have to play differently. What you were saying about the sort of play less blue more is one of theirs. That's almost pretty much what you were saying before about the taking joy in a C chord and like just playing less and just kind of really listening to the sound, Nice.
I've got original sounds not on, so you won't have heard anything. That's how I fixed the turn everything off and
Like, just take pleasure in a C chord and then nothing.
In a silence, take pleasure in silence.
Just enjoy the silence.
Yeah, that was a good one. I liked that sort of play because I think it does lead itself to, well, maybe you can start thinking about other considerations that are not just about playing loads of notes. Or it allows you to think more about what you're playing and getting away from the tick element of it. Like the sort of, some players can get into the vibrato tick where when they're practicing or they're learning something and everything has this kind of like unhinged kind of vibrato at the end.
Yeah, that's quite a, I wouldn't say it's like one of those things that grinds my gears, but I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot on notes that aren't long enough to have vibrato on them. So you get these weird little meow.
Yeah, and it's all the same vibrato as well, which I think is one of their things, isn't it? Number 7 on the list, change of vibrato. And being intentional with your vibrato. And I think so much of this is just about being more intentional, because I think the part of the ruttage is that you're just picking it up and you're just like running a muscular tick on, without being thoughtful or intentional. So that's, covers a lot of it really, doesn't it?
I think Muscular Tick is a really good what's a good
band name.
Hey. But I think that's probably a good that in itself is probably a good point. Maybe break your programming.
Evening, Sean. Hello. That was some time ago. If you're still watching.
Yeah. So, like, if you think of how many times you get people, like, how many times have people played this? And that's
Played
like
it a few.
yeah. That's like an absolute kind of, it's like a tick thing. I did this about, like, I talked about this in like phrasing and stuff, but like trying to check in with yourself and go, oh, I always do that. And it's fine if you always do that. But try and go, right, I'm going to intentionally try and break that apart and then lead me to some new stuff so I can always do something else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it happens. There's a couple of little, I mean, we've all got them. Everyone's got them. And there's nothing wrong with them. But, like, trying to get away from the muscles taking over and trying to be like, oh, hang on, right. that's cool. But again, zoom in on what you know and go, right, what can I do with that? There's so much to be kind of taken from stuff that you already know, and to try and sort of improve on it. There's like, because there's only so many notes, do you know what I mean? You know, I've probably played every fret on here. Maybe not that one.
Yeah, now.
Called that one in. Completed it, mate. But yeah. But for my own, because we'll have to sort of wrap this up relatively soon, right? Because you got to go.
I am getting dragged to the gym at 7 o'clock, so I need to be getting changed at 10. So I got half an hour.
All right. Yeah. So just from maybe a personal, semi-personal window, I'm just trying to redust. I'm trying to upcycle my. I don't say upcycle my fretboard knowledge, because it's not like I don't know where stuff is, but I do find myself delving into the same areas. So I'm making a point of just sitting down and like just moving around a bit, and like intentionally going, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Not being too thoughty, but also not being just muscles either, if that makes sense. I know it's a bit vague, but you know, I'll just pick a chord type and I'll just sort of warm up and move around and like try and go, oh, I always, you know, if you tracked it, there's probably certain pathways that we all sort of use, probably more than others, just because it's guitar-y and it's comfortable. And there's not wrong with those, but just trying to be like, oh, what if I do this? Oh, what if I do this? And trying to kind of have different shades of correct rather than sort of not shades of correct. Trying to still sound good, but being that little bit out of where you would normally go for it. Do you know what I mean?
I liked I liked the Learn a Bloomin' Song. I think that's really like tangible, like practical, like it's a real specific task to do that
there's an end point, isn't there?
Well, potentially, yeah. Like I would probably come at it from like learn a standard, or like which is, it might be a little more open-ended depending on how you want to come at it. But having like I think the intent, like the kind of general philosophy of it, is that it's giving you a framework to where some things might bubble up that you would had no idea what was going to be needed. And that could be a technical thing, it could be a harmonic thing, chord movement, or you know how you might, you know, a certain key or whatever. Or I think that's a real. I think obviously the obvious thing is learn a song. So learn to play a song, and I'm going to do it the same every time or whatever. I'm going to learn the riffs, learn the solo, and that's totally cool. I'm guessing that's what they were talking about. I've forgotten since I watched it. But I think what you could sort of expand that out a little bit more to, well, I'm going to just go. One of my favorite things to do is to Russian roulette the real book and just kind of find something and just say, right, I'm going to work on this, and just you can practice my reading, reading chords, symbols. I can practice reading the melody, try to maybe play bass notes and melody together, and just go through the kind of skills needed to like, and it's in the context, it's in the framework of something specific. I really like doing that. But you could do it like with, like just learning to play the parts, just learning parts for a song or whatever. You can totally do that as well.
Yeah. I think it's again, it kind of walls you in and go, oh, there's a thing, there's an achievable thing, because I think for a long time, I guess all
Well,
things for a start,
options paralysis.
Like, yeah, it's just like, oh, I just want to get better at improvising. It's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah,
you know what I mean, it's like I want to get fitter, and it's like you can I would say you can kind of always get fitter, because there will be a point where you just become supreme being, maybe. But it's, you know what I mean. It's like saying I want to get better.
Yeah,
and just leaving it at that. You know what I mean? It's like I want to, In fact, weirdly, I've got to lead this. It's turned into a guitar duo now with Pete in Scotland in October. So I've got to kind of learn a load of tunes for that, which is, there's pressure there. And again, there's a list. Here's what you've got to do. and it's an achievable goal. It's a bit more like I say, there's sort of walls around it, but again, within those walls, you can kind of build how high you want, but you just can't, you're not really going that way or that way. It's all within the realm of that thing. They did say actually on the Learn a Blooming Song, Mick was saying even just like a strumming song, and I think his example was Shake It Off by Taylor Swift. He's like, there's only 3 chords in it, but maybe you could do that, and then maybe do a different version of it, and then maybe it's basically a vehicle for creativity, I guess. Do you know what I mean? It's like, rather than just playing was it A minor, C, G, maybe you go, you put it's like, oh, put a diminished chord in, and then maybe instead of an A minor you play it there, and it's like you're still working within the realms of something that's recognizable, and it's just, I guess it's just limited. The point is, you're just limiting your options a little bit with a musical easel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's the thing, I'm going to do this. I'm going to play around with this.
Mm. The TV theme one made me laugh because it reminded me. I don't know if I ever told this story in the podcast, but I used to, like, long time ago, used to go around to family's house and teach or like play. Well, it was supposed to be teaching, but it was mostly just playing music for a lad with quite severe autism, and so I would often just be like learning TV theme tunes. So I was like, Thomas the Tank and
Nice.
Like, was it all sorts of like just like random sort of TV tunes and things, and so it just brought that memory. I've not done it for 10-15 years now, but yeah, that was, yeah, brought that memory to mind, which was nice. So yeah, learning the TV theme tune one.
So I think with a lot of these, the kind of overarching technique, I guess, and a lot of them is maybe slightly get out of your comfort zone is maybe the thing, but it's also just looking at things through a slightly different lens. I think it's basically what you've been doing so far has got you so far. That's been great, but maybe you need to do this, or this. It's like just making a small change, isn't it? Really, because like learning a TV tune, that's like, I'm not going to look it up. I'm going to just work this out by ear. So it's like, maybe if you're not used to working stuff out by ear, it's your way of going, right, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try something that's really memorable that I really, really know, as probably as well as Happy Birthday, that kind of level of, I know this tune. And I'm going to try and work it out by ear. It's a slight, it's a slight step this way. Learning a song, same sort of thing. You could look at that a number of ways and then try and apply your own stuff to it. But there's kind of a result in the end. Some people might just say, write a song. That could be a thing.
Yeah.
I'm not really a writer, so I can't speak too much to that. But what else was I going to say? Yeah, listening to, going away and listening to stuff. It's all kind of that thing of like, here's where you are, but just sort of go this way a little bit, or go that way a little bit, and just sort of look at it from a slightly different angle. I know that's a bit woo, and it's not that tangible, but
if I remember, I'll put the link to, I did a video a couple of months ago on how I learned songs by ear for gigs. So I'll link to that. That could be quite relevant to this, maybe, because that's definitely when you're learning songs for a specific reason. Maybe, well, even if you're not doing it for a specific reason, just having some sort of a framework of how to do it might be useful. So I'll link to that.
Yeah. I did a video as well about how to cram songs. It was like, I think the thing was like
multiple songs.
Yeah, it's like 30 plus tunes to learn in 2 days. Here's some tips. I tend for the most part, as much, unless it's a real emergency, especially for like functioning stuff, I try not to use charts, because it's coming from the cruise ship thing where it was all charts. When I came back, I just couldn't remember anything, like, ever. So that could be a thing. Get off the charts. You know, you could try that.
But
If everything you do is off charts, like if it's a standard, if it's a song, if it's, you know, a chord progression, get off the charts, and then hopefully that'll open up like a little bit of processing power because you're not looking at the thing and doing it. I would say I would play better over a chord progression I know, whether it's a standard or otherwise, than if I was looking at it and reading it. I'd be probably making the changes if I was reading it, but I would probably be more intentionally making the changes if I'm not reading it and I know where it's going. Because you're sort of forward planning then, because you know what's coming rather than looking at it and like, do you know what I mean? Yeah, I think for me, it sounds different for me personally. I think it's more musical if I know the progression.
Depends on what it is for me. But largely, yes, I agree with you. I often find when I make a chart or just go through in the process of writing it means I don't use it. That's usually what happens, as I mentioned in the video. That
spoilers.
But I find that it's absolutely when I'm on gigs, I absolutely don't want my face or stuck in a chart. But there is a real, I think, a nice sort of mindset space to be in sort of creating a sort of a simple sort of chart that is by putting it's often like by putting it down onto page, you have to sort of intentionally think about it or I do in a way that's perhaps a little bit more, it's going to make it stick. And then I'm just not using it anyway for the most part. It's unless it was something particularly tricky with a short time scale to actually learn it by.
I think there's probably something in there. I'll just briefly add to this, in that if it's like a list of tunes and it's like, oh, I don't know that one, I probably will look up the chords just because it's quicker as a starting point. The chords might not already be right or correct, but I don't know if it's a photographic memory thing, but if I see almost like you would on a chart, if I just see a 4 chord, like a 4-bar phrasing like that, it's like I almost think in line form. I think I say this on the video, but initially you're like, it's that chord, then it's that chord, then it's that chord, then it's that chord, and it's like, all right, well, it's a 4-bar phrase. Now that 4 bars, you're adding. Basically, you're changing what your definition of one is. So initially, 1 chord per bar, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then say it does those 4 bars 4 times for a verse, for example. Then each line is 1, but then if that same verse happens the same way later, that whole verse is 1. Because now it's 1 verse. You see what I mean? And then maybe if it goes intro, verse, chorus, and that's like the first half of the song, and then it does all that again, then that big chunk of information is now 1, minus the intro. Because the intros tend to only happen once for the most part. But anyway.
Yeah, something that ruts can be annoying, problematic, certainly, but don't necessarily. I think my takeaway that don't necessarily have to be, and there's lots of things, as Dan and Mick were talking about, how to get out of them from a practical pedal gear perspective and a mindset perspective. And yeah, we come at this, obviously, on this kind of show, we'll always end up talking about fretboard visualization at some point. So. But yeah, I think let us know in comments, or let if there's any other things that you guys do to crowbar yourself out of the rut.
Yeah, man. I think basically whatever gets your hands on the guitar and smiling is probably a pretty good one, right? This is a bit Jerry Springer's final thought.
It is, isn't it?
But yeah, whatever gets you on the guitar and enjoying yourself, put it that way, I think will somewhat lead to positive results.
Probably just doing this podcast again will probably lead to more interesting different things for me playing and practicing. Just the nature of just being mentally active within the space you want to be working is doing multiple different things is probably a good thing.
Yeah. And that refers back to, you know, the social, being guitar social.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sort your head out. That was the last one, wasn't it? Sort
Yeah,
your social life out. Sort your guitar social life out.
So
Cool.
well, I mean, thanks to Dan and Mick for the last minute inspiration.
Yeah.
I saw that the other day and I was like, oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It'll be interesting to see what, you know, obviously Jake and Tom aren't here at the moment. But it'd be interesting if they listen to this and like what their kind of thing is. Maybe it'll be like a three-way rutception, because Dan and Mick did one. We've kind of inadvertently reacted a little bit to that. Tom and Jake are on this one, so they're going to be like the third layer of rutception.
Rutception.
They might be like, "What are you talking about, boys? It's
A
absolute
rut.
nonsense."
It's a rut within a rut.
Exactly, rut within a rut within a rut.
Yeah.
Like Russian dolls.
Oh, nice. Cool. All right. Well, let's. I've got to go and.
Gonna go get swole.
It's not swole at the moment because I'm trying to rest my neck and everything. I'm just cardio, just cardio. So not trying to not, just trying to not do anything. Just gonna stress my aging, ailing body. It's a yeah, cool. Nice one. Thanks, Dan. Good to chat, and thanks for listening, everybody. I'm again, apologies for the audio quality these days, but I'm just getting this posted up to the podcast feed ASAP, so there's no discrepancy between these videos, streams, and the audio coming out. I think we're going to continue doing this. Try and get another one done next week. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Jake and Tom might be back then. I know Tom's been traveling back from Nashville, so he might have some good stories from the woodshed.
All the stories.
Yeah, and yeah. Until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week.
Peace.